You're watching ABC7 News at 7.
All those things get mixed up, messed up, interfered with if you have a trade war. So it can bring the entire economy to a halt.
Tariffs on Canada, China, Mexico, and more. Is this the beginning of a trade war? And how does this affect us here locally? Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohen, and welcome to ABC7 at 7. We'll have more on the trade war and how it could impact you in a moment. But first, our top stories at 7. If things get worse, we might need a school resource officer to keep the peace between Sarasota Sheriff and school superintendent. Todd Bowden is fighting back after Sheriff Tom Knight sat in front of county commissioners to say he was disgusted about the decisions made by the district's leadership. Bowden says Sheriff Knight isn't doing his part when it comes to helping students stay safe for the upcoming school year. The latest decision the sheriff is questioning is removing a school resource officer from Riverview High's campus, which will leave the school with only one officer.
It just astonishes me that their message to the community is always the safety and security of their children. And if you're going to do that and say that, you better operationally practice that.
The sheriff has withdrawn all funding for school safety and security. Last year, he committed $750,000 to the school resource officer program. And this year, his offer is to contribute nothing, absolutely nothing.
Sheriff Knight says he plans to sit down with the school board at a special meeting on June 28th to discuss the SROs. A pilot for a Saudi royal family is under arrest, accused of stealing thousands of dollars from a Northport man. The alleged theft took place back in 2015. Marcin Urbanski is accused of stealing $9,000 from Northport resident Stephanie Rome. Rome says Urbanski had offered her a job with an airline but had to pay money for administrative costs. It turned out Urbanski had only worked for the overseas airline for 5 weeks and had no authority to offer a job to anyone.
So we were informed that there was some movement in this case earlier this week, and happy to see that some of our work that we put in will hopefully find some justice for someone.
We'll have more coming up on this story tonight at 11. Today, former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords joined students and teachers in Sarasota to push for student safety and gun reform. Giffords is a victim of gun violence, surviving an assassination attempt while in office in 2011. This morning, she pushed the community to support gun control alongside Giffords, high school students and teachers from both Manatee and Sarasota counties who described the fear that they experience in the classroom post-Parkland.
What has happened to common sense? I was taught not to run with scissors, to look both ways before crossing the street, never drink and drive, and to turn off my phone while operating a car. What I didn't think that I would need to be taught is where to hide if there was ever a shooting.
Protect our children, our future. Let them lead the way. Make our country a safer place, a better place.
The rally today was in support of Democrat David Shapiro, who is running against Republican incumbent Vern Buchanan. He'll first need to be Jan Schneider in the Democratic primary. In the statement, Buchanan says while he and Giffords may not see eye to eye on the gun reform issue, they have voted the same way on many other issues while in Congress. A U.S. Supreme Court ruling today, you may soon be paying state sales taxes on all online purchases. Siding with South Dakota, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled states should be able to require online retailers to collect and remit state sales taxes. The decision is expected to have wide-ranging implications for state finances across the country. It could open the door to additional tax revenue for Florida. Right now, companies without an office in the state generally don't collect sales taxes on the internet transactions. By law, customers are still required to submit the tax to the state, but very few do.
For years, online-only retailers have exploited this loophole that allows them not to collect sales tax, which has given them really an unfair competitive advantage over brick-and-mortar only stores. This decision now finally levels that playing field, and I think that's all any business owner wants.
It will be up to the legislature to come up with a way to implement the ruling in Florida. Estimates say the state now loses out between $200 and $700 million annually from uncollected internet sales taxes. Now let's head over to ABC7's chief meteorologist Bob Harrigan with the first alert forecast. Bob.
On the first day of summer, not full, actually officially rolled in at 6:07. Tomorrow will be the first full day of summer. This is the longest day of the year, too. 13 hours and 52 minutes of daylight, the shortest, obviously, of the night. 86 degrees right now. That's not the factor. It's the heat index, 95. That's what it feels like at this hour. And I suspect by 11 o'clock, this number will still be close to 90 as a result of no cooling rain showers around right now. The pressure, 2994. That's rising slightly right now, but that high pressure ridge is retreating southward, and that's giving us that west to northwest wind. And that keeps everything focused in the central Florida and along the east coast. Although this is trying to build back toward that west wind, it's not having much success at all. And there's pretty heavy lightning. You can see the couple showers right there actually blew up as a result of the outflow from the storms that were around earlier. Heavy rainfall in Highlands County, creating these little outflow boundaries, which in turn fire up other storms as they move out toward the west. But with that west wind, it's setting up some convergence there into eastern portions of, again, Highlands County, also into Hardy and DeSoto counties at this time. As far as the wind forecast goes, well, this forecast is going to stay out of the west. And that means very warm and muggy overnights and hot days with heat indices up near 100 to 105. Back to you, Alan.
Bob, thank you. Tonight, tensions with America's trade partners continues to rise. While some say we are on the brink of a trade war, others argue we are already in the middle of one. A new $50 billion in tariffs on China and even more on steel and aluminum imports. But what does that mean for us, the average consumer? ABC7's Taylor Torringano is here with more. Taylor.
Good evening, Alan. The experts say we can see the effects of these tariffs in many forms, but it's hard to predict the exact impact looking forward. We can bet, though, that the cost of our average goods, like, say, a gallon of milk, has and will go up.
People don't realize Canada has been very rough on the United States. Everyone thinks of Canada as being wonderful, and so do I. I love Canada. But they've outsmarted our politicians for many years.
An accusation by the president in April, angry over Canada's refusal to budge on a dairy tariff. The president retaliating with new tariffs of up to 24% on Canadian lumber.
This is going to cost middle-class Americans who want to buy a house a lot of money.
Canada standing its ground, along with Mexico and the European Union. All three now hit by the U.S. with a 25% steel tariff and 10% for aluminum, too.
If you want to define it as a tit-for-tat with tariffs, we're already in a trade war.
The once trusted allies of the United States described by the president as trade villains. So how will this affect you and I?
Everyone should understand right up front that a tariff is a tax on consumers, because the cost of that tariff will be passed directly on to consumers. So as a way of making a point, the president is engaging in an argument with our very best friends for very low stakes, and the taxpayers are paying for it.
An increase in prices on the common goods like milk as a result of the dairy tariff and higher costs of steel means that new car could be more expensive too. But there's also more indirect effects.
If steel's more expensive, then it's more expensive to manufacture with steel. Then those prices are still going to get passed on to consumers, even if you don't directly buy steel.
President Trump says this is all an effort to fix the trade deficit that's been, quote, very unfair for a very long time. But in the case of Canada, is this true? Economics instructor Michael Snipes takes a look at the numbers, pulling up the trade data from the U.S. Census Bureau.
There's Canada, right, and there's that deficit that the president's talking about with Canada. But when you scroll up, this is trade in goods only. So it's really an incomplete picture.
A rounded $18 billion deficit in goods. But to be accurate, Snipes says you have to include the services we get from Canada in that equation.
But when you bring in goods and services, it switches to a $2 billion surplus. And goods and services, that's a better measure of trade than just trade in goods.
Now China, that's a whole different ballgame.
When you look at a country like China, there's a lot of market distortion practices going on within China in terms of intellectual property and some other tariffs that they have on our goods that they tariff at a higher rate than we do of similar goods coming in from China to the United States. So the goal of tariffs on China really are not just about boosting domestic production of goods that we want to see here. It's also about some market distortion practices that we know the government engages in.
China, which has been ripping us off, the greatest abuser in the history of this country.
Perhaps the reason why Trump has just announced even more tariffs on 25% of $34 billion in Chinese products, begging the question, will this all be worth it in the end?
The forces that are at play here, the interplay that goes on, are so complex and so far-reaching that it's almost impossible to predict the outcomes of these things, particularly in a world where you don't know yet how the other countries are necessarily going to respond in the long term.
So far, it seems no one's any closer to backing down, only imposing a new sanction on the back of another. It's a tango many have reduced to political theater, and if you ask Professor Keith Fitzgerald, a dance that's only resulting in another hit to our country's main source of power that will soon be very hard to recover.
And I'm afraid this president is squandering it incredibly quickly. I think already we have lost respect on the world stage, and that respect was really the main source of our power.
And Alan, it only continues. Today we're learning Europe, Turkey, and India have just hit us with hundreds of millions of dollars in tariffs, and those new Chinese tariffs imposed by the president are planned to go into effect on July 6th. China already promising to hit back with its own tariffs on the same scale and with the same intensity.
Taylor, thank you. In a moment, the best economist on the Suncoast, the politics of a trade war, and don't conservatives love free trade? Next at the Trapezoid.
When ABC7 declares a First Alert Weather Day, it means we can expect major changes to weather conditions here along the Suncoast.
It means there could be severe, potentially dangerous weather ahead.
We tell you when a First Alert Weather Day is coming because we want you to be prepared.
A First Alert Weather Day is an advance warning. We'll let you know about any changes in the weather when the first signs appear.
ABC7 First Alert Weather. We're here for you.
If you're only hungry for a slice of apple pie, why buy the whole pie? And you certainly wouldn't want to pay for an all-you-can-eat buffet. So if you don't use your cell phone that much, why get charged for a plan that's too big, or even an unlimited plan? Luckily, there's still a wireless company that shares your values. Welcome to Consumer Cellular. Our average customer pays about $25 a month for everything they need. Many pay even less, as plans start at just $15 a month. You'll get a straightforward bill that's easy to understand with no surprises and all the attention you deserve from our friendly customer service team. No wonder Consumer Cellular has received the J.D. Power Award for highest customer service 4 times in a row. Plus, if you're an AARP member, you'll receive special discounts. It's easy to switch. You can even keep your phone and your number. So stop paying for more than you need and start your 30-day risk-free trial today. Call 800-457-2317, go online, or visit a Target store today.
There's nothing like this trail in Alabama. It just goes from the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state. We see all kind of different terrains, great value, and great fun. We've been coming for 18 years. We started off with a group of 8, grew to 12, and grew to 16. And we love it because where else can you get world-class golf courses with world-class accommodations? To be able to play these type of courses in this environment, and the difficulty keeps us coming back over and over and over again.
WWSB ABC7 is an equal opportunity employer, and we're looking for qualified people to join our dynamic team. For a list of current openings and to apply online, visit www.mysuncoast.com/contact/employment. If you're a motivated team player and you want a rewarding career in a fun, fast-paced working environment, WWSB ABC7 could be the perfect fit for you. Check out our list of openings now.
Welcome back. Time to put Canada in its place, right? France, too. Those Canadians have really been sticking it to us on trade, President Trump says, although economists say the reality is we actually have a trade surplus with our neighbors to the north when you look at goods and services. China, that is another story, and up until now, Presidents Democrat and Republican have all failed to fix the trade imbalance. This week, the president imposed another $50 billion in tariffs against China. And joining us in a few minutes are Professors Michael Snipes, an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee, Keith Fitzgerald, political science professor at New College, and Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com. But first, let's get an update on our weather from Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Bob.
Well, Alan, it's been hot. We all know that. This is summer starting today. The jet stream has retreated northward for the most part, and the heat wave is on here along the Sun Coast. And we're going to see that continuing, too, as it spreads from the southern plains basically to Florida. We've had temperatures and heat indices up near 100 degrees for the past 4 days now, even surpassing that occasionally. All the storms down to the east. Typically what happens is these storms develop during the summer, and then with an east to southeast wind around the area of high pressure off the Carolina coast, it brings them back to us, and it cools things down in the afternoon and evening, so we don't have as much. And then the rain that's around in the morning, the sunlight is used to evaporate that, so it doesn't get as hot. And again, this is going to be going on for at least the next 2 days. We'll start to see a reverse to this pattern on Sunday, and that should continue throughout most of next week right now. Some lightning still occurring, although these storms are weakening. You can see some of the outpush of those showers off to the west. It may break it down a little bit. We could get some isolated cells developing, but it's unlikely along the coast. And we will see a few coastal showers possible as the land breeze will develop. There have been a few lightning strikes just as of late, and you can see that occurring now near Sebring, stretching off to near Wauchula and over northern sections of DeSoto County. Well, what we have is a high-pressure ridge located down to the south now, and this high-pressure ridge will again dominate our weather tomorrow, although it's been pushed down to the south. This trough to the north is kind of keeping it suppressed down to our south, and that is allowing for that westerly component. Well, here's what's going on as far as the latest goes for us. We are looking at the potential for some isolated showers to develop, it looks like, on in through the next couple of days, mainly inland, and all that activity could be rather strong at times. And it looks as though we will see a nice sunset tonight. If we can go to the tower cam, we'll show you the sunset, and looks like things are going to be quite nice tonight, and looks like it'll be the longest day, so you have to wait a little longer. There's 13 hours and 52 minutes of sunlight today, but tower cam is showing some nice weather out there. 91 degrees, and that's our high today. It was above average. 89 is our normal, and 97 is the record set back in 1998. Well, satellite and radar imagery showing the low pressure area spinning right here over Iowa now and into Kansas City and near northern portions of Missouri. It is dropping to the southeast, but this is the culprit that's bringing us that frontal boundary, which has really suppressed the high pressure ridge down to our south, giving us that westerly flow, which really makes for a warm day, especially in the afternoon. Make sure if you're going to be outdoors, stay in the shade as much as possible. Don't overexert yourself in the afternoon especially, and remember, drink plenty of water. Water is the best, obviously, and temperature is much cooler behind that storm system. You can see that in the 60s and 70s throughout the Great Lakes and throughout the Ohio Valley. It warms up in Memphis, 89 there. Dallas, really hot at 100 degrees, and Billings, Montana at 75. So the forecast for boaters looks good tomorrow. Seas running less than 2 feet. There'll be a light chop out there, and looks like west winds will continue throughout the entire day. The water temperature 87 degrees, and beaches will see a high of 88. Well, here's the extended forecast then. As we see it, if the computer catches up here, it's going to be a heat index of 100 there on Friday. On Saturday, we have a golf tournament which kind of kicks off the whole Sarasota Powerboat Grand Prix Festival. That'll be taking place at the Meadows. Tee time is, by the way, at 8:30, and it'll be 82 degrees, and it'll feel like about 100 by the noon hour. So things will get pretty hot. Notice the rain chance is really picking up Sunday through Thursday next week, as we'll start to see more of those storms heading back toward the coast. Alan will be back with his guest right after this.
I'll be right back. Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
My life motto is keep moving.
And as hard as it was when my husband passed away, I knew I had to keep doing what I love. Oops, coming. But I needed help with my insurance, and that's what the NAIC provides. They have resources to help you and your family make the best decision, and they'll help you to keep moving forward, just like me.
Florida Studio Theater presents Always Patsy Cline, extended due to popular demand. A tuneful tribute, the story of Patsy's rise to stardom is told by her biggest fan. Featuring such hit songs as Walkin' After Midnight, I Fall to Pieces, Crazy, and many more you know and love. Critics are calling Always Patsy Cline a genuine hit. Audiences are calling it outstanding. Always Patsy Cline is now playing. Tickets can be purchased at 941-366-9000 or floridastudiotheater.org.
Every time you purchase a fishing license or register your boat, you're helping to preserve our nation's coastlines, lakes, rivers, and streams, protecting memories for generations to come. Learn how your participation in boating and fishing can help the environment at takemefishing.org/conservation.
When my youngest, Addie, was 2.5, she was diagnosed with leukemia. When we first heard that diagnosis, you feel extremely alone. Walking in that Light the Night light with 6,000 people carrying lights, white for survivors, red for supporters, gold in memory of those who have passed. It's the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's hope that every year there are fewer gold lanterns. Your lantern will make a difference.
Start a team, join a team.
Help us light the night.
To be able to just get my son here and not think about how we will pay for it, it just takes so much weight off of my family. St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
Welcome back. What exactly is a trade war and why are we starting one now? Joining us for more are Michael Snipes, an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee, Keith Fitzgerald, political science professor at New College, and Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com. There are many things in life I do not understand. This is one of them. We have something that the Washington Post just wrote, and let's put it up on the screen. President Trump is starting a trade war against China. At the same time, he is starting one against the countries we would need help to help us against China, and he's doing this while also trying to undo sanctions on a Chinese company that bipartisan majorities in Congress think might be a real national security threat. Rod, this is what I don't understand. They're talking about ZTE, which is a Chinese manufacturer of cell phones, which the U.S. military has banned from sale on military bases because of the Chinese technology they are concerned about may be used for espionage.
Right. So I'm not super familiar with the ZTE thing, just that it exists and that's going on. But as far as the rest of it, the broader picture of trade, I would take exception to the contention that Trump is leading us into a trade war. I believe we've been in a trade war for a lot of years with China. It's just that we were more the punching bag and they were more the puncher. And the reason I say that is because they have, through the WTO rules, they have been able to enact enormous tariffs on imports. They have also cheated the system by requiring mergers with their companies, by stealing intellectual property of U.S. companies. This is all well known. This has been going on for a long time. And the reason why tariffs can be used in this is it gives us extraordinary leverage with a country that needs us to be buying their stuff to get a better trade agreement than we have with them.
I don't know a Democrat or a Republican which would disagree with what Rod just said, except I don't want to let go of the ZTE thing right now because that smells bad, Keith.
It's a suspicious thing. It doesn't make any sense. And I think there's a general concern, a general belief on the part of a lot of people that the president sometimes is an agent of other powers, and because he has loans and that sort of thing. And you know, if you don't want people to think you're guilty, you have to not act guilty. But I can't think of any rational justification for why the United States is bailing out a Chinese firm with whom we have some real disagreements.
And I want to get into what is a trade war, but Rod, I do want to ask you, there are a lot of business entanglements that we're hearing about every single week, and then the president himself says he is concerned about Chinese jobs. I thought he was more concerned about American jobs.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, you know, we've been around this before. Sometimes the president says stuff. I don't know why he says it. But on the point of the trade war, and honestly, I got to tell you, I don't understand the whole thing with Canada. It makes no sense to me. Well, I mean, Canada's just a great neighbor and all, and it's peanuts by and large. China makes a lot of sense to me.
And we'll get to Canada in a moment, but Michael, let me get to you. Why has this been so vexing to both Republican and Democratic administrations up to now? This is not news that we have a huge trade imbalance with China.
That's true. And one of the things is, I think might be some of the confusion is, what exactly is it we're talking about? What are the metrics that we're talking about? When we have the president saying that we have a trade deficit with Canada, in some sense he is correct, because we do have a trade deficit in goods. But then you also have another contingent of the government saying, no, we have a trade surplus with Canada. But in a sense, they're also right, because they're talking about trade in goods and services. So we really need to get on the same page before we can have a discussion as to kind of why things are occurring, how big they are. We need to get on the same page as to what we're talking about.
We are just getting warmed up. Our conversation on the trade war will continue after a quick break, so stay with us.
Did you know you could get life insurance for less than 32 cents a day? With Guaranteed Acceptance whole life insurance through TrueStage, you can get up to $25,000 in protection with a single phone call. TrueStage can help free your family from immediate financial stress when you're gone.
Utility bills, mortgages, car payments, those are a lot of things that can add up pretty fast.
And even if you're on a fixed income, prices fit your budget, starting at less than 32 cents a day. Plus, your price will never increase and your benefit will never decrease. And with no medical tests or health questions, you cannot be turned down for any reason. Call 1-800-842-7189. Now, for a free, no-obligation quote, TrueStage offers plans to fit your budget. Help protect your family from immediate financial burdens after you're gone with Guaranteed Acceptance whole life insurance through TrueStage. Call 1-800-842-7189 now.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Iguanas only reproduce 1 month out of the year.
That's because they suffer from erectile dysfunction.
According to the Department of Homeland Security, what color represents the lowest threat level?
Is Caucasian a color?
Which casino game has the best odds for a payout? The ATM.
Funny you should ask. Weekdays at 4:30 and 11:30 on ABC7.
Imagine a world filled with pillow fights, playgrounds, and the search for the perfect climbing tree. Every kid deserves that world, but 1 in 5 kids in America struggle with hunger. At No Kid Hungry, we're committed to creating a world where every kid eats healthy food every day. We raise funds, we help families, and we lift up communities.
Suncoast Charities for Children and Powerboat P1 encourages you to share the beach with our marine wildlife during the Sarasota Powerboat Grand Prix Festival. You can share the beach with our amazing sea turtles by waiting until sunrise to set up. Stay clear of nesting areas for our beautiful birds, and please don't forget our beloved manatees. Never swim towards them, and always obey manatees' slow speed zones. Together, we can all enjoy the races and share the beach.
My name is Haley. I have Fragile X syndrome. I work with Chartwells at Einstein's and FAU. I like being up front and interacting with students. The students are very nice and very hungry. Having a job is a big ticket for independence.
Hi, this is Dan Marino. When your business recruits people with disabilities, everybody wins. To find out how, go to disabilitieswork.employflorida.com.
You're watching ABC7 News at 7:30.
Welcome back. This week, President Trump announced another $50 billion in tariffs against China. This after announcing tariffs against Canada, Mexico, and Europe. Our friends. Joining us for more are Michael Snipes, an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee, Keith Fitzgerald, political science professor at New College, and Rod Thompson of the RevolutionaryAct.com. Michael, let me start with you. This week, as we just reported, the president announced another $50 billion of tariffs against China. That's on top of the move made before and China's response to that. What will that mean in terms of the impact on our everyday lives and the costs of anything involving cars, automobiles, and other electronic goods, and everything else?
Sure. All you have to do is go to just about any retail store and look at where things are made, and most things that most consumers buy are made in China. And so if we put a tariff on those goods, on really any goods that we import from China, that's going to increase the price for a lot of different goods. And increasing those prices for a lot of goods that a lot of consumers buy, that's going to have a pretty big effect on the average consumer.
Some people will say to you, we are really not in a trade war yet. We could be. Why is that so scary to economists?
It's scary because there's a pretty well-known result in economics that says that free trade is good, just on net, for both countries. And the idea is that, well, if one country is better at producing something, it's cheaper to buy it from that country than produce it here. Well, we get the benefit of lower prices. The other country gets the benefit of selling it at a higher price. And when you get rid of free trade, when you impose tariffs or quotas or whatever trade policy you want to have, it eliminates that. So the whole reason why countries trade in the first place, taking advantage of arbitrage and price differences, that erodes away, and we really lose a lot of benefit from lower prices of consumption.
But Keith, let me ask you this. Isn't the president doing what Democrats have wanted for many years? Because we have complained about the loss of U.S. jobs, auto industry jobs, because of cheaper cars coming from, whether it's Japan, Korea, whatever. Isn't this something that Democrats have wanted to see in a very long time?
You know, I think it's sort of interesting that a lot of President Trump's views seem to be hardened in the 1990s. And this was a much more salient issue for Democrats, particularly in the industrial Midwest in the 1990s. Over the years, it's somewhat fallen back as a major issue precisely because we understand a lot of the benefits of having a trade regime. The Democrats actually created the free trade regime after the New Deal, and we've adjusted, the economy adjusted. So we do less in industrial export, but we do a whole lot more in service.
But the narrative in terms of whether you're talking about the unions or just working class folks is that China and these other countries are taking our jobs. So,
yeah, well, let me just say that China is taking our jobs, and they are taking our services, and they do steal our intellectual property, because one of the things I was saying is we move more into the service industries, and one of the most dynamic features of that is we think up ideas, and if they steal them, they're going right to the core of what our advantage is in the economy. So Rod and I actually sort of agree with this. China's been a bad actor, and you know, I sort of speculate that part of the reason we've let China get away with things for such a long time is that during the Cold War, we were happy to see them moving away from a strict communist model, and we sort of looked the other way as they did a lot of things. We say, come on, coming into the club. Well, now they're in, and it's time to really straighten up the rules about them. But you know, it has nothing to do with Europe or Canada. That part of it is just crazy to me.
But Rod, what I don't understand about the president's strategy is the politics of it from his perspective when we talk about the tariffs on Canada, for instance, primarily over the dairy industry, which everybody who talks about this says that is primarily going to affect you know, the midsection of our country, the farmers, the Trump states, and that this back and forth with Canada could, frankly, to use the word, screw Trump voters in the Midwest?
I wouldn't think on a large amount, since it's Canada that is putting the tariff on like milk imports and that sort of thing.
And pork and other things
right.
like that.
So this would benefit the heartland to a degree. I think politically speaking, just quickly, the tariffs make a lot of sense back to China, because you're talking Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, these sorts of places where you could see benefit from that. However, Professor Snipes was talking about everybody kind of understanding now free trade and the value of free trade, and that's absolutely right, but that is not what we have had with China. And so maybe we're all in agreement here that China should be a target, should be a focus. They need to be forced, and it will only come through force, they need to be forced to come to the table with a much better trade agreement that will be beneficial to American consumers and companies.
But you said earlier you really do not understand the president's emphasis on Canada.
No, I don't understand it at all. Because it's peanuts, really. I mean, it's really small. My suspicion is because when you would talk to Trudeau or somebody and he said, look, can you do something about these tariffs on these products and everything so that we can have freer trade? And Trudeau said no, he got ticked off. That's my guess.
Keith, no, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, it's one of those rare instances where all three of us agree on something. I think it's kind of interesting.
Free trade's good.
Right, but I still don't, I mean, I don't understand the argument, the president's argument, when it does come to Canada. Rod says that this would be helping Trump voters in Trump states that have farms, dairy. But if Canada is putting tariffs on American dairy, going back to Canada, like pork and milk, I don't see how that helps American farmers.
Well, and I keep track of Iowa, where I lived for a while, and they're not happy at all because it's hurting their grain exports as well as some of the dairy stuff. One of the things about just the politics of trade is that it's regional. It's a classic kind of populist issue, because there's always somebody getting hurt, somebody benefiting from the United States, which, by the way, has never been an angel in these trade regimes themselves. We set up the rules to benefit ourselves a long time ago. And that doesn't hurt anybody in particular. So you can play off the anger that a specific region of the country has, and it really doesn't hurt you with anybody, because the general good is not divisible.
Rod, I want to give you a moment here, but then I want to move to closing thoughts here, and I have a question for all three of you.
Yeah, the trade imbalances, I think this is a good example of the difference between Canada and China. We have, obviously, it's disputable, we don't have much of a trade imbalance with China, so that really shouldn't, or I'm sorry, with Canada, so it shouldn't be an issue. But trade imbalances in and of themselves are not bad, because I have a trade imbalance with Publix and with Racetrack and with my doctor, and that's a good thing, right? Trade imbalances that are driven by government subsidies, such as China does, and by high tariffs on imports, such as China does, that's a trade imbalance that's not a good thing.
So what does this mean to folks and consumers in our area and the state of Florida in general here? Because we've been talking about dairy farmers and so forth. I would imagine, Michael, you would say that the biggest problem to us consumers around here would be the cost of things, whether it's in the grocery store or the mall.
Yeah, that's going to be the most immediate way, and that's going to be the most direct way that a lot of people in Florida are going to see a lot of the effects. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about the dairy industry in Florida. I don't think it's that big. So that particular piece wouldn't really hurt Florida. But, you know, China's putting a lot of tariffs on agricultural goods, and agriculture is the second biggest part of the Florida economy. That's one place that it could affect Florida.
Keith, as a political scientist, are you concerned about the impact all this has had on our very best friends, Canada, the UK, France, the rest of Europe?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, as far as the politics of this internationally, the United States is a very powerful country economically. But where we really get our power and our real leverage is in what political scientists call soft power. It's the reputation we have of people who take care of the whole international regime, who protects human rights, who make things go, and we're giving that away really quickly by initiating a trade war. The stories of the last few days about appearing to the world to look like we're walking away from our commitment to human rights. We're losing our influence, and that's the most important asset we have.
Does that bother you?
Well, no, because I disagree a little bit with the take on that, as far as, particularly on the human rights one, but that's a whole different issue, not for tonight. I don't think we are. Again, the Canada thing, I wish we wouldn't do. The China thing, we absolutely have to do. The European Union is kind of in between the two, right, and now the UK is separating itself. But the European Union does have an awful lot of tariffs, and it does make it harder for us to import there. It's why part of the reason we have a trade imbalance. We probably shouldn't have any real trade imbalance to speak of there, because we're so equal in a lot of ways. And so I would like to see the president hammer out a much better trade agreement with China, an improved one with the European Union, and just walk away from the Canada thing.
Right, we have to leave it there, but before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on Governor Rick Scott's ban on voting on college campuses. The United States has had some of the lowest voter turnout in the so-called civilized world, just over 55%. As for millennials, just over 49%. Then why in the world is the state of Florida trying to ban early voting on college campuses? We went to Facebook for your thoughts, and Joni says there's only one reason folks want to make it harder to vote. Richard says there is nothing democratic about restricting the ability to vote, especially when individual groups are targeted. And John says only in a backward-thinking swamp state filled with ignoramuses would there ever be a ban on early voting on college campuses. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. We want to thank our guests tonight, Michael Snipes, an economics instructor at USF Sarasota Manatee, Keith Fitzgerald, political science professor at New College, and Rod Thompson of therevolutionaryact.com. When we return, we'll be joined again by USF Sarasota Manatee economics instructor Michael Snipes, who will talk to us about the Rule of 72. He'll explain after the break.
When I was growing up, my mom told us, always treat others the way you want to be treated. She did business with companies that shared her values, like Mutual of Omaha. She had a guaranteed whole life insurance policy through United of Omaha Life Insurance Company, a Mutual of Omaha company. When my mother passed away, her United of Omaha policy helped cover her funeral expenses and bills, and they had money on its way to us within 24 hours.
United of Omaha is here to take care of you. When you call the number on your screen, we'll help find the right policy for you. If you're between 45 and 85, you can get coverage up to $25,000 with no medical exam. Call us right now at the number on your screen.
Now I know I'll be taking care of my family even after I'm gone.
United of Omaha guaranteed whole life insurance. Call or go online now. Be there for their future.
A promise was made, a promise that hit the beaches of Normandy, a vow that captured Iwo Jima, a contract that weathered Tet, a pledge that stormed the desert in Iraq, an IOU that braved IEDs in Kandahar. A promise was made to America's veterans. DAV fights to keep that promise, so all veterans and their families get the benefits and support they earned. For help, visit DAV.org.
Many websites selling medication may look professional and legitimate, but the vast majority of sites selling prescription drugs are doing so illegally. Criminals use websites to sell counterfeit medications that may contain life-threatening toxins. Dot Pharmacy is a website verification program that helps you identify safe and trustworthy online pharmacies. Purchasing medicine online can be safe and easy. Just look for pharmacy to the right of the dot in website addresses.
Hunger is a growing problem in our area, and a huge number of Suncoast residents are suffering in silence.
It could be your coworker,
your child's classmate,
or your friend fighting to secure their next meal. But you can help.
ABC7 is partnering with local organizations to help feed the Suncoast.
Go to mysuncoast.com/hunger to join the fight. Help us.
Help the hungry.
Welcome back. The Rule of 72. What is it and how does it affect us? Lucky for us, we have USF Sarasota Manatee economics instructor Michael Snipes here to explain. Michael.
Sure. So what it is it's really kind of a shorthand way to think about how countries grow and how quickly countries grow. And so what it is essentially what you do is you take the number 72 and you divide it by the growth rate for a country. Now, why this works, how this works is beyond the scope of what we're doing here. We would need to do some mathematical background, right? But this is just kind of a quick and easy way to see how quickly things grow. And so for reference, let's take a look at two of the countries that we were talking about just a second ago in the United States and China. And so all the data that I'm going to be using here all comes from 2017, built because we haven't finished 2018 yet, so that's the last complete year that we have. So when we're talking about the United States, in 2017, the economy grew by about 2.3%, and that tends to be pretty typical for the United States. But China grew at 6.6%. And so what we want to know is, well, what does that imply for how quickly these economies are going to grow? How quickly could their economies double? And so using this trick, we got 72 divided by 2.3. What that implies is that the United States economy should double in about 31 years, which makes sense. We're really big. If we're big, we grow slowly. And using it for China, again, 72 divided by 6.6, the Chinese economy should grow or double in about 11 years. So it really does give you a sense as to kind of what these growth numbers actually mean. And so when we look at GDP, in 2017, it was about 19.3 for the United States, about 12 trillion for the Chinese economy. And so taking this into account, if you do a little bit more math, it kind of seems like a logical question. Well, China's smaller, but it's growing a lot more quickly. When can we expect China to pass us in terms of GDP? And when I did the math on it, it shook out to be, if nothing else changes, and this is all still kind of approximate, but if nothing else changes, and it will, but if nothing else changes, China will pass the United States, at least in terms of GDP, in about 11.5 years, right? And so this gives you kind of a sense as to kind of what these growths mean and kind of in terms of, if we think about it in terms of years, I think it makes it a little bit easier to kind of digest.
I know we don't have time for this, but the question is, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, one of the things we can do is kind of improve our relationship with China through things like coming to the table in an honest manner when we're talking about trade negotiations. That's certainly something that could build trust between the two countries, getting a better deal for both countries.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. We want to thank Michael Snipes for joining us tonight. He joins us every Thursday to discuss the wild world of economics. When we return, we'll have an update on immigrant families being separated. Stay with us. But right now, let's get a final check on our first alert forecast from Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Bob.
Thanks, Alan. We are looking at the KCK webcam showing nice beach weather out there today. Pretty calm conditions. We still have some pockets of red tide being reported. We'll get a report, again, the full report coming out on Friday. Look for not much rainfall for the next couple of days. Hot weather safety tips already on the first day of summer. Yeah, you need to slow down a little bit, especially in the afternoon hours. And again, dress for summer means a light color, loose-fitting clothing, and watch for what you eat, obviously, and drink plenty of water. Air-conditioned places is the best place to be, especially in the afternoon, if you can. Now, heavy storms, Mother Nature's air conditioning taking place now over central Florida, not much here along the coast. You can see the outflow boundaries, though, creating showers getting close to East Manatee County right now, but with a steady west wind, it's very unlikely that that's going to have an impact on the coastal locations. So overnight lows will be very high. We had a flood advisory earlier. I guess that has since expired now for Highlands County, but still some rainfall occurring there, but the heaviest rain is over. High pressure has been bumped down to the Florida Straits, and with that in mind, we're getting this steady wind coming out of the west, and this west wind is again causing us to see some showers move in inland areas and then toward the east coast late in the day. You'll still see that steady west wind on Friday, meaning similar conditions anticipated tomorrow. 1 or 2 lone showers along the coast during the morning, and then the sea breeze will develop and then move inland. As I said, there will be 1 or 2 scattered showers in the morning. Same conditions expected for Saturday. Looks like better chances for inland storms, and those aren't even all that high. But you'll notice, start to see a little bit more rain on Saturday down south of us. Well, this high pressure ridge is going to build back northward. So I think better chances for scattered late day storms, especially on Sunday and then continuing through the work week next week. Right now it feels like 95 degrees out there, the actual temperature at 86. It's much nicer now in places like Highlands County, DeSoto, and Hardy counties. You can see this is a big sprawling system now. Low pressure area rather stagnant over much of the southern portion of Texas right now, producing mudslides and also flash flooding going on there all the way down into Mexico. Here's another low pressure spinning through Missouri, heading off toward the mid-Mississippi Valley, and eventually this frontal boundary is not going to make it all the way through us. It's going to pull up stationary as they typically do during this time of year. And it looks as though the rain and storms will be rather significant in Illinois, Indiana, and parts of Kentucky tomorrow. Temperatures behind it pretty cool where it's raining and that air is drawing around from the northeast. 65 in Chicago right now, 75 in Kansas City, 98 in Albuquerque, and 89 in Atlanta. Boating, light chop out there. The seas will be running less than 2 feet with a west wind at around 5 to 10 knots. Water temperature now 87 degrees for beaches tomorrow. UV index will be at 12, so not only is it going to be hot, it's going to be sunny throughout most of the day, so load up on the sunscreen. The extended forecast, heat index up near 100 tomorrow. Same story on Saturday, and then 60% chance for rain on Sunday and Monday. These will be scattered storms, mainly it looks like late in the afternoon, although we could still see a little bit of a transitional day on Sunday. I think most of it will be in the afternoon. And then continuing to stay high as far as that rain chance goes Wednesday and Thursday. So the first week of summer will be looking more and more like it's supposed to with afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Alan will be back with primetime headlines right after this.
Did you know you could get life insurance for less than 32 cents a day? With guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance through TruStage, you can get up to $25,000 in protection with a single phone call. TruStage can help free your family from immediate financial stress when you're gone.
Utility bills, mortgages, car payments, those are a lot of things that can add up pretty fast.
And even if you're on a fixed income, prices fit your budget, starting at less than 32 cents a day. Plus, your price will never increase and your benefit will never decrease. And with no medical tests or health questions, you cannot be turned down for any reason. Call 1-800-842-7189. Now, for a free, no-obligation quote, TruStage offers plans to fit your budget. Help protect your family from immediate financial burdens after you're gone with guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance through TruStage. Call 1-800-842-7189 now.
According to a new survey by U.S. News & World Report, 3 of Alabama's top 4 hotels and resorts are part of the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail Resort Collection. The Grand Hotel Marriott Resort in Point Clear, the Battle House Renaissance Mobile Hotel and Spa, and the Renaissance Birmingham Ross Bridge Golf Resort and Spa. Hey, we didn't invent Southern hospitality, we just offer more of it. Visit rtjgolf.com/resorts to find out more.
The summer sizzles at the Players Center with the opening of Crossing Delancey. City cultures collide in this charming play about a young woman searching for love and the New York dream. Opening June 14th, call 365-2494 or visit theplayers.org. Get your tickets to the perfect romantic comedy, Crossing Delancey.
I took my first handful of pills, and that's when all my priorities seemed to change.
He would ask to use the bathroom in other people's homes.
He just assumed that they would have medication.
He'd go in their medicine cabinets and steal prescription drugs.
I wish I knew really what these prescription pills were.
We were so naive about the whole drug thing.
These are all synthetic forms of heroin.
Keep your medication locked up because you'll never notice that a pill is gone.
Mind your meds. Learn more from the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
Thanks to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, what was once impossible is happening today for thousands of patients with blood cancer.
I live.
I live. I live. I live.
I live.
She lives.
Because of the research done by the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in the battle against blood cancer.
If you had a chance to support the research that is saving lives, what would you do?
Checking primetime headlines, the House failed to pass immigration legislation today. This comes after President Trump signed an executive order pausing his policy of separating migrant families at the border. ABC's Janae Norman is in Washington with the latest.
The bill is not passed.
The immigration debate taking center stage in Washington, but one GOP bill falling flat and not much hope for another measure that will be voted on tomorrow.
Even if we get something out of here, you need 9 Democrats
to stop trying to stop things and voting with us, and I don't see that happening.
House Speaker Paul Ryan and President Trump blaming Democrats, even though Republicans control the House and Senate.
My administration is also acting swiftly to address the illegal immigration crisis on the southern border. Loopholes in our immigration laws, all supported by extremist open border Democrats.
The latest debate over what to do about illegal immigrants crossing the border seeking asylum coming to a head amid outrage over more than 2,300 migrant children taken from their families. The president signing an executive order to stop his own policy of separating families, but without a plan for what happens to those already split up.
He didn't even mention 2,400 kids. What is he going to do with them?
They should not be incarcerated. They're children.
Today, dozens of kids descended on Capitol Hill, wrapped in Mylar blankets, mimicking images of those migrant children held in cages. The First Lady previously speaking out against the policy, and today visiting a center for immigrant children in Texas.
I also like to ask you how I can help to these children to reunite with their families.
And the administration is now asking a federal court to change a ruling that currently only allows families to be held together for up to 20 days. Janae Norman, ABC News, Washington.
As Janae Norman just reported, Melania Trump was in South Texas visiting immigrant children today, but her jacket raised some questions. The graffiti lettering on the back of the $39 Zara jacket reads, "I really don't care, do you?" Trump wasn't wearing the jacket when she landed in McAllen, Texas to tour the facility, but she put it right back on when she arrived back at Andrews Air Force Base after the trip. Her team insisted the jacket did not have any hidden message. Charles Krauthammer, the Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist, died today at age 68. Krauthammer was a regular on Fox News up until a year ago. He often appeared on the O'Reilly Factor and also spent 23 years as a panelist on the PBS show Inside Washington. Krauthammer leaves behind a wife, Robin, as well as a son, Daniel. Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Jameis Winston will reportedly be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. The suspension comes from an alleged incident with an Uber driver in Arizona from March 2016. The alleged incident didn't surface until November 2017. Winston has denied the allegations. And that's all the time we have for this evening. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.